Hi, good evening. I'd like to welcome you to Poem Praise 2. I do thank you for tuning in, and peace and blessings be upon you and your family this evening. Now, we are going to get right back into For Men Only for this take here on Poem Praise 2. We are in chapter number 6. And certainly, if you would like to hear the introduction and chapter 1 through 5, just go to the playlist and go to the title For Men Only. I have them all there for you. But for right now, let us go into chapter number 6, which is entitled With Sex. Her no doesn't mean you. How her desires are impacted by her unique wiring, and why your ego shouldn't be. Physically, women tend to crave sex less often than men do, and it is usually not related to your desirability. This chapter will be the ultimate test of your manhood. I'm going to ask you to do two things and do them at the same time. 1, think clearly. 2, about sex. And the section on the side for this chapter is sex. I've noticed, and probably so have you, that what us men do so well as separate tasks, clear thinking and sex, we routinely, embarrassingly, miserably fail at doing together. As I found out after I got a full dose of the honest truth from about 450 women in Colorado, there I was, the only guy listening while Chpt presented what she learned about men while writing for Women Only. It was a weird and wonderful experience. And here was the wonderful part, at least at first. During a lively question and answer session, almost all the questions focused on sex. I was so amazed at the ladies' one-track minds. I could barely listen to the questions. Back home in Atlanta, my buddies and I were ecstatic at the idea that women really did want sex more than we thought. Fast forward to Jeff and Chpt doing in-depth focus groups for women for this book. I am over the weirdness by now, but unfortunately, the wonderful is no longer in sight. Instead, what I'm hearing doesn't jibe at all with the good news I heard in the rookies. Finally, I do my best to describe for these women the absolute obsession with sex among their counterparts at higher elevations. The women stare at me politely. Then one breaks the news. Well, since Chpt's book emphasizes how central sex is to a man's emotional well-being, the women were probably wondering how to handle their man's requests. Okay, I think to myself, cool, nothing wrong with that. She sees that clear thinking has yet to occur. And it was not because they want sex so much, she continues. A lot of women don't have the same need to pursue sex as much as guys do. So they were simply trying to figure out what on earth to do. In desperation, I shoot a question looking at my wife, but Chpt is already nodding. I'm afraid so, she says. That's exactly what was happening. The big whooping miss. How could I, a smart, merry, and extremely likable man, have completely missed a full dose of the honest truth about sex from 450 women? And I hadn't just missed it. What I had thought or heard was almost the direct opposite of what they were actually saying. After spending hours going over surveys and listening to focus groups, I've come to believe that my big whoop and miss is pretty much what men do in marriage every day. We think male and female humans are the same creatures, only with different and nicely matching body parts. We assume we have the same sexual wiring. So when there seems to be a mismatch, we have no idea why. As one of my puzzled buddies put it, if sex is free and it's fun, why does she not want lots of free fun? If sex is free and it's fun, why does she not want lots of free fun? Now, we do know that in some marriages, it's the woman who is penning for more. 1 in 4, according to our survey. So if you are in that situation, you are not alone. And of course, some wives indicated that they and their husbands were happily on the same page, to the envy of all. But since we have limited space, we're focusing just on the apparent majority of husbands that want more and better and don't know what to do about it. Thankfully, solutions exist. And our research confirms good news for men who find themselves in that situation. In particular, most women do care about what their man wants. And they do care about sex. And they do want great sexual relationships with their husbands. But to get there, we need to do that. Thinking clearly. Thing. The impossible surprise about sex with her. It's not you. If you are a typical married male, you probably want more sex with your wife than you get. But that's not the end of the story. I know, because in Chpt's professional survey for women only, 97% of men said getting enough sex wasn't by itself enough. They wanted to feel genuinely wanted. Men are powerfully driven by the emotional need to feel desired by our wives, and we filter everything through that grid. Do I feel desired or not desired by my wife? If we feel our wife truly wants us sexually, we feel confident, powerful, alive, and loved. If we don't, we feel depressed, angry, and alone. And this goes way beyond the amount of sex we're having. But here's where the first breakdown in communication comes between the average husband and wife. Our survey showed a startling, hard to believe, but oddly encouraging truth for men. Why you want to be genuinely desired by your wife. Her lower level of desire for sex likely has nothing to do with your desirability. You might want to read that again. So I'm going to reiterate it just one more time. While you want to be genuinely desired by your wife, her lower level of desire for sex has nothing to do with your desirability. And if you think about it, that's actually good news for the 99.9% of us who don't look like Tom Cruise. Here are the facts. Among survey takers who wanted less sex than their husbands, fully 75% indicated that it had nothing to do with his desirability, sexual prowess, or general studiliness. I'm going to spell that. Studliness. In fact, of the remaining 25%, less than 4% said that their lower interest in sex was specifically because their husbands was not attractive or desirable. The hesitation of the other 21% primarily had to do with the anticipating pleasure, including for physical reasons. While you want to be genuinely desired by your wife, her lower level of desire for sex likely has nothing to do with your desirability, for the third time. On the survey taker spoke for the whooping 96% of women when she said that the one thing she most wished her husband knew was that just because I do not want sex as often as he does, I still love him deeply and find him very attractive. Look on the next page at the top 3 reasons, by a wide margin, that women gave for wanting less sex. Our results show that although there certainly are factors that can be addressed, the frequency gap is usually not because a wife doesn't desire her husband. In the great majority of cases, the cliche is actually true. Look, it's not you, it's me. Answered by women who said they wanted less sex than their husbands. I think I just have a lower sex drive than he does. 60%. I'm sometimes simply too tired or stressed. 60%. It's not that I don't want to be with him. It's just that at the end of a long day, it is sometimes hard to make the transition to wanting physical intimacy at that moment. 48%. Yeah, I know it goes over 100. The frequency gap is usually not because a wife doesn't desire her husband. If you're thinking clearly, your brain has ground to a halt on an apparent impossibility. But I can't imagine finding my wife very attractive, being in love with her, and not wanting to have sex with her often. So how could she be that way? But remember, that guy's thinking, and we're trying to learn her thinking for the moment. Take a step away from the seemingly impossibility and let your driving question instead be, so if it's not about me, what is it about? And I'm going to let you ponder that question. And for our next take on take 2 of chapter 6, we're going to go into the section of, so if it's not about me, 5 truths about women and sex. 5 of them. So stay tuned to Poem Praise 2. I want you and your family to be blessed and have a wonderful rest of this evening. Until I talk with you again here on Poem Praise 2, I want you to be well, take care, and later, y'all.